Hey guys, it's April with Crafting with April. I have had several requests to show you guys how to do the epoxy cups from start to finish. I did a video and I showed a few steps and explained, but there are some that are wanting a full step-by-step tutorial. So here we are, we're going to get started and cover what you're going to need. I use a cup tisserie. I got this off of Etsy. You can get them off of eBay. There are several places where you can get them, or you can make your own. You just need a rotisserie, a couple of gears, something to mount it to. Let me see if I can give you a good shot of that one. It's just a little rotisserie, and mine came with these. They have the little footballs and everything, and once you get your cup done, you just put them on the spindle and turn it on and it turns. So you'll need something like that because your epoxy is thin and it's going to run and it's going to drip. You can see from where I've done others. And that's what keeps it smooth on the cup. Otherwise you're going to get lumps and bumps and it's just not going to make a good overall cup. So you'll need something that will allow you to do the turning. And like I said, if you have an old rotisserie motor from an old grill or something, or you can buy just that and make your own. Like I said, they're about 20 bucks or so, depending on where you get it. You're going to, of course, need paper towels. You'll need some alcohol, and that's for cleaning your cup. You're also going, I don't have it out here because I forgot it. You're going to need some sandpaper, and I just use the stuff from the dollar store, a little bit fine, but you don't need it right off. You'll need it close to the end, and I will get mine out here by then. You're going to need your glitter, and that's just, I'm using that top container with some sand in it, so, because on this cup I'm going to be using my sand from Panama City Beach, and all I did was just mix a little bit of it up with a little bit of white glitter just to give it some shimmer. But I wanted the basic sand. I've got my Martha Stewart blue glitter. This is, I don't know if it has the color on there or not, azurite. So this is the azurite in the Martha Stewart. I'm using the Recollections Ocean. And I haven't decided yet if I'm using actual sand, and I got this at Hobby Lobby, really inexpensive, or if I'm going to be using the Go Glitter, or the crushed, champagne crushed glass glitter. So I haven't decided yet, but I'm pretty sure that it's probably either going to be the glitter or the crushed glitter, and you'll see what I'm going to do. You just need the colors of glitter that you want on your cup. Okay, because you don't need exactly what I have. You're going to need a couple of these. I do not wash mine out. I throw them away. So I buy the bulk packs that are cheap and I toss them out. I do not wash them. And I use those with my Mod Podge. I am using just the regular old matte Mod Podge. That's what I use. It is not going to dull your glitter. You don't have to worry about that. You're going to need your vinyl or adhesive. I do not put my vinyl on my cup, then glitter, and then peel. Some people do, but I don't. I like the way that mine looks like it's floating when I put it on after that first coat of epoxy. So that's when I put mine on, but you can do yours the way that you want. And then I just have some containers, and I'll be using these for my glitter so I don't have to keep pouring it back and forth, because I do a couple of coats, and then when I'm done I'll put it back in here and wipe out my containers for my next job. And then you'll need a couple, I prefer this size of just, I call them throwaway paint brushes, but I don't have two of this size, so I'm going to do my first coat using this big wide one. And then I'll do my second coat with this one. I throw these away. I buy the cheapos because this stuff is really hard to wash out. And that is the epoxy, the food grade. You can get that at Hobby Lobby. Use your 40% off coupon. I've been using it, doing several cups, and I still have quite a bit left. So, and you'll have to mix that. And in order to mix that, I've already thrown out the mixing cups. I just use the little miniature solo cups, and that what because they have the lines on them, and I can see because you have to mix this stuff exact, and I do one of one side and one of the other, and then I mix them in a separate cup with a popsicle stick. So you'll need something of that nature. It does come with a couple of cups, like medicine cups. I toss those out. And I know that sounds like a lot, like I said, your sandpaper, and you're done. Now you can start with a cup that is painted, which I am going to do, because the base of my cup is going to be mainly blue. So I'm going to try it on this cup, or you can use the stainless. This is what I normally use. So let me grab my sandpaper so I have everything here at the table, and we'll come back and we'll start the process. Okay, I'm back, and this is 120 grit sandpaper that I use. It comes out of the packs from the dollar store. That's all you need, and you won't need this until after your first coat of epoxy has set and dried. I'm going to say a day or two away. This is not a quick project. It takes about, I don't know, if you stay at it, you can do it in 3 or 4 days, but it depends on the humidity in your area, heat. Epoxy times, drying times are going to vary depending on the weather, how cool it is, how dry it is, etc. So, and the other thing I forgot to mention, you're going to need some blue painter's tape. You don't need much, just a little. And the first thing we're going to do is take the lid off our cup and put it to the side. You don't need it. And peel off your label. And I'm using the 30-ounce Ozarks. I get them at Walmart in the camping section for $8 and change. That's what I use. They work just fine. And then I'm just tearing off a small piece of the blue painter's tape. And I am going to try to stay on camera as much as I can, guys. It gets a little bit tricky here because I am having to stand behind the camera, etc. But you're just going to run that around. Keep it smooth as you can. And run it around the inside perimeter of the cup. I didn't get that quite long enough. Almost. And if that happens to you, just tear off another piece and stick it in there. And all this is going to do is keep epoxy from running down to the inside of your cup. If it gets on this lip right here, not a big deal. We can buff that off with sandpaper after the first or second coat of epoxy. So don't worry about that. It's not going to affect anything. You just don't want big drips going down inside your cup, and that's going to help protect that and give it a place to run along the edge when it's on this rotisserie. The next thing I do is I insert my little football till it's in there good and tight, like so. And it's not going to hurt anything, like I said, for that tape to be sitting on the outside. If it bothers you, you can bring it in a little bit like this. Just don't make it unstick from the side. You want it to stay. You don't want it to do that. You don't want it to pull away. You want it to stay stuck up on that side as much as possible. So, but if you can get it to bend just like that, just leave a tight seal there, you're good. Alright, and the next step, you're going to need your alcohol and your paper towels. And you will need it after you, no, you won't need the alcohol again, just this once. And all I'm going to do is clean the cup. I take that back. You will need it once again before you put your vinyl on your epoxy where you handled it. And I'm just cleaning it off with alcohol, just getting any residue of oil or fingerprints. It's not a really big deal at this step because no vinyl is going on there, but I like to make sure that the outside of the cup is clean. And set that to the side. We're done with that for now. And the tape for now. Okay, next we are going to let that dry. If you've got any alcohol on there that's drying, you can see. Just let it dry. Pretty much don't have any oil on my hand where I just cleaned this with alcohol. So, and this does have a little indentation up here. Don't worry about it. Mine actually just about vanishes when I do the epoxy and everything. So the next step, let's see if you guys can see me here. You can. Great. I'm going to step on this side of the camera so I can actually work. I pulled my tape loose. Just going to tuck it back. Into place. And you can actually clean the inside of your cup with alcohol too to help your tape stick better. I don't normally have an issue with it, but of course we're on camera now, so it's going to give me an issue. And next, let me grab another little cup just to make this easy on myself. I usually just dip into my Mod Podge bottle if I can get it open. Let's see. My grandmother gave me this thing back in the 80s, and I use it often. A jar opener. Gives it that grip so you can get lids off of things. And you can see where I've been pouring it, and it's all gunked up there on the edge. That's why it's hard to open. I'm going to pull that off and put it in the trash. This stuff lasts a good long time too. You don't need a whole lot. So just put a little bit in the cup, and that's probably more than I need now. And I use these for the Mod Podge. I do not use them for the epoxy. I did once, but if you press too firmly when you're using these, especially with the epoxy, it pushes out air bubbles with the product, and you get those little bumps and lumps and stuff. So I have stopped using these for my epoxy, and I only use a brush. And I am going to start at the base of my cup and work down, I think. No, I am going to work backwards actually on this one because of the way I'm doing it. But usually I do start at the base and work down. That way if it runs or drips, you don't want your Mod Podge to be on there so heavy that it does run or drip, but occasionally you'll get that one. So just be careful of that. And let's see, I'm going to start with my dark blue. My cup don't roll off now. And I'm just pouring that over into this container. And then once I'm done, I don't want to contaminate my others. Once I'm done, I will then pour these back into their jars. But this is just the easiest way I've found to work with these. And I'm just dumping each one into its own little container. And I am going to, this is the sand that I mixed up. I'm probably going to have to mix more of that, but we're going to try. And I think I am just going to go with the regular gold glitter. It'll be just as pretty. New jar. And then I can put all that to the side. So there I have all of my glitters and everything that I'm going to use. And like I said, I'm going to start with the blue. And I'm just going to start, and you can put your hand in here and do it that way if you want. And I'm not going all the way to the edge, if you notice on this. I am coming here and then I'm pushing a little bit forward. That way I don't get the drips down to the inside of the cup. You just want a nice thin even coat. You don't want to get it too heavy, you don't want runs. You just want enough for this first coat of glitter to stick to. And like I said, do it this way until you get used to it. You don't want to have too much glue. That's what Mod Podge is, glue. And you don't have to work really fast, but you can't go too slow here because you're putting such little glue. You want it to be sticky when you go to put your glitters on. And this is just the initial coat. I think I may do 2 of these. I'm just not sure yet. This is going to be a beachy themed cup. I almost stuck that in my glitter. And I do not worry about, a lot of people tape that off. I do not. I glitter my entire cup except inside. So totally up to you. If you want to tape it off, tape it off. I'm sure you guys have seen my pink flower cup, so you can see it works just fine. I use the same cup. Of course, I use the stainless. This is my first time using this enamel. We're going to see. But I think it's going to help me with the majority of my cup that's blue as far as glittering goes. And I just want a nice even coat. I want it to be milky white all over. If you see any spots that are already dry and you'll want to hit those again with a little more glue. Keep your glue as smooth and even as possible. If it's lumpy, your glitter's lumpy. If your glitter's lumpy, your epoxy's lumpy, and so on. And you're not going to get it out without a ton of sanding. Almost like if any of you have ever gotten your nails done, acrylic nails, they get it all lumpy, it's hard to get it straight from there. So I'm just going to smooth all of that out. And I do not worry about if something doesn't get coated on the first coat, because sometimes I do 2, maybe 3 coats of glitter. Okay, I'm going to step over here so I can see and make sure I'm okay. I am going to start with this deep dark blue, and I am just sprinkling it on. Where I want it, and then letting it fall back into the cup. This is really hard to do around the camera, but I'm going to try. I am going to be running 2 colors together there, kind of ombre effect. Try to keep it in your container. I'm getting a little bit outside there, but that's okay. But I do not want this to be even. I'm doing kind of an ombre with an ebb and flow like the ocean would do. And like I said, it's okay if it's not completely coated on the first go round. We're going to do more coats. Just try to get as much coated in this first one as you can. And I am going to leave that messy part of that glitter that's on this. I don't know if you guys can see that right there. I'm going to leave that because I'm going to be, like I said, doing the ombre effect. I'll get another container and I'll use these. And I'm just kind of bringing these 2 together here. And this is going to get tricky here. Just want a little bit. That may take several coats, but that's okay. It's what I want. This cup is for me. And it may not look like it's being covered, but it is. It's on the glue. And then we're going to do the base in the gold. Don't forget the bottom. And you can see I had such a thin, don't want to tap it there either. I had a very thin coat of Mod Podge because it's already dried in places on the bottom. But that's okay. We'll get it on the next coat. That's why I say don't worry about if it's not stuck, because you are going to do more than one coat. I am going to let that sit and dry for at least an hour, maybe 2, and then I'm going to come back and do another coat of glitter exactly the same way. I am going to heavy up on the sand, so I'll come back and show you guys how I coat and do the second coat. That way you'll get every step that I make on this. But that is the start of the cup. Don't worry about the dry spots. They will come through, and we're just going to let it sit and dry it for this time being. And I am just going to clean this glitter mess up. I'm going to put that in my trash glitter. I do put mine on my cuptisserie to dry here, and that's just so it doesn't get banged or bumped or anything else. I don't have to turn it on. I just let it sit here just like this and dry. And so we'll come back after this dries and do our second coat. Hey guys, we're back, and I am about to start my second coat of Mod Podge over the glitter and sand and stuff that I have going, and I am going to go a little bit thicker this time with the Mod Podge on this second coat. The first coat was just to kind of get it going, but you're just going to coat the entire cup really well. You don't want it to be dripping, but you do want to coat it pretty good, because this next coat is going to be a heavier coat of glitter. And I've got some running right there, dripping. Just make sure you don't have a big goop. Like I said, if it happens, you can get it off of there. We can sand it before we do our epoxy and stuff like that. So just go ahead and get it on there smooth, but you want it to look basically like this here as you get it on. I am trying to make this video as short as possible, but showing you guys step by step. And just make sure you get a smooth coat. You're going to get a little bit of glitter in your brush, so if you're doing the ombre effect, it's okay, because that's what it's going to help with that. But you don't want to drag too much of your glitter, so try not to brush it hard. Just stay on there fairly easily and pull your Mod Podge into the next color. And then coat that, and then come back and do your second coat of glitter and let it dry. So once you've got your coat on there, it should look like this. Pretty smooth all the way around. And then you'll start and do your glitter once again in the color scheme that you're using. Okay guys, I have my second coat on, and it's looking really good, like I want it to. I want mine good and uneven. I'm trying to make mine look like the ocean. And then you have where it's lightening up and getting shallower, and then the foam at the edge, and then the sand. So I'm really happy with the way that mine's turning out. Now if you wanted more straight lines and all, like I said, you will have to tape it off and do that sort of thing, and you could do that or tape off the bottom. That isn't the look I was going for. I am achieving the look that I wanted. I may do a third coat of glitter, but if you can see, I don't know if you can see or not, I am not seeing any of the blue cup even in my white area, but it is not dry yet because we know that the Mod Podge does lighten it a little bit. So I have glitter in this one, and I don't want that in there for my next coat. So I am going to start with the fresh one. Like I told you, get a second one so that you have that. I'm just going to clean up my glitter mess here. And that way you can toss one and start fresh with your last coat. Actually, I'm sorry, I am going to rinse this one out and do my next coat of glitter because I am going to do a third coat. If I wasn't, then I would throw this away because this is going to put my final coat on there and I want it clean of Mod Podge. So I'm going to rinse this one so that I can do one more coat of glitter. I want a heavier glitter, especially right here where the white is after it dries. And then I will be back with you guys when we do that coat. Okay guys, I wanted a little bit heavier coat of sand right here, and it will look kind of 3D. It looks kind of lumpy, but I have pressed it down. What I did is I just let my cup-tisserie, I just turned it on, and I just took a little bit of the Mod Podge and I went around and I dabbed it in the shapes like I wanted it, and then I put my dish up under it and I just poured the sand and let it fall into the dish until I got it coated like I wanted, and pressed down any places where my Mod Podge was kind of trying to run. And now I have that actual foam look that I was going for using the sand in there. So now I'm going to leave this on because I do have a couple of thick spots and I don't want it to settle as a drip. I want it to stay just like it is. So I'm just going to let that dry. I have checked the rest of it and it looks really good to me. I think I'm just going to put a little bit of gold down on this bottom right here. That's the only place I see any of the dark blue coming through from the enamel of the cup. If you'll remember, we started with a dark blue cup. It's stainless, but the outside was enameled in blue. And after I put a coat of Mod Podge, I'm going to let this dry so I can handle it. Or I don't want to disturb it if I bump it or something. But I'm just going to, right along the edge, if you could see, there are like one or two little spots where I see the dark blue coming through. So I'm going to put a little Mod Podge on there, put a little bit of gold on it, and then I'm just going to coat my glitter with Mod Podge and let it dry. Because you have to do that or it will come off into your epoxy. So I will come back and show you. We will coat it just like we did before, like I showed you before I put this coat of glitter on, except instead of putting glitter on, we're just going to let it sit and dry. So once this dries, I'll come back and show you how I coated mine. It's going to look just like it did in the last step, and then we'll get ready for our epoxy. Okay guys, mine has dried and I am really happy with the way that it looks. So at this point I am just going to coat it with Mod Podge as if I were going to put glitter on it again, but I am not going to glitter it again. I am just going to coat it with Mod Podge and let it sit and dry. And it's going to kind of appear dull to you maybe, depending on which Mod Podge you used. But when you put the epoxy on, it's going to brighten right back up to this. So don't worry, just coat it with your Mod Podge. That way none of your glitter is flaking and coming off when we do the epoxy. We are going to take this tape out and replace it because it has glitter on it and it's loose. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to, I don't guess. Got one little place I'm going to touch up right there. Just check your cup, make sure you don't have any bare spots of glitter, touch them up now. If you have any touch-ups, touch it up, let it dry, and coat it with Mod Podge. Let that dry. Do not put more glitter on it after you've coated the entire cup, and then we'll come back and finish it up. Okay guys, this is basically what you want to see now. You just coat everything with the Mod Podge at this point and just let it dry. You're just going to let that sit, let it dry. We've coated everything and that's going to hold our glitter on and keep it from flaking when we do our epoxy. So at this point you want to let this dry overnight, or that's what I do. I let it dry overnight, and then I will probably, I did, guys, because I'm doing extra light colors here, I did swap in the middle. I did my blue and dragged the Mod Podge towards the end, and then I did my lighter color and dragged towards the bottom so that I didn't get too much of the blue glitter into the gold and the white, because I didn't want a ton of that in there. And just let it sit, let it dry, and then we will be ready to go. When I check this tomorrow, I'm going to touch it and make sure that I don't get a bunch of glitter on my hand. If I get a bunch of glitter on my hand, I will end up putting another coat of Mod Podge on it. But I usually don't have to. I'm usually good from this point. But you just want a nice, smooth coat. The smoother, the better it's going to go on. Is it going to feel rough when this dries? Yes, it's supposed to. The epoxy will smooth that out. So go ahead and coat up your cup, let it dry overnight, and we'll check it, make sure we're not getting a bunch of glitter off on our hands. If we are, we're going to do another coat just like this and let it dry. And probably if you have to do another coat of it, you will need to let it dry overnight as well and sit, because you don't want to mess up your epoxy. So this step here can take 1 to 2 days depending on if you need to do another coat of Mod Podge or not. Okay, let's let it dry, and I'll see you guys in the morning. Okay guys, this cup is dry. I'm just going to leave it on the spindle because I'm going to be putting the epoxy on it next. I'm not going to worry about this glitter mess. There's not enough to... I usually just dump it into my trash glitter bucket, but I'm not even going to worry with it. I'm just going to leave this here. I am going to get my epoxy ready, and it is mixed in equal parts. So I have my little cups. I'm going to pour the equal parts into my little cups, and then I am going to place them in this cup and stir them up, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, as you can see, you have one that is kind of a yellow color and one that is really clear. One is thinner than the other, one is thicker, and this is going to make your epoxy. And as you can see, I have equal amounts. If you do not get these equal, it will not harden, it will stay sticky, and you will have a mess. I'm just going to lay my stir stick to the side, and I'm just going to pour this into the cup, and I'm just going to let it drain. And that is my first one. That's the yellow one. I put it in first. It's totally up to you how you want to do it. I'm just going to take the stick and I'm just going to scrape out any little bits that I can get as much of it out of that little cup as I can. So as you can see, I got most of it out. And then I am going to pour the... Let me see if I can get this where you guys can see it just a little bit better. There we go. I am going to pour the second one in. and this is the thick one. This is the one you really need to scrape out of the cup. Get all you can get out of there. And I say exact, I mean, if you're a drop or two off, you're going to be fine. And then you'll want to begin to stir it slowly. The least amount of air bubbles you can get in there, and I've got a few, but I'll tap them and get them down and get them out of there, the better. But it's going to get cloudy, okay? And you're going to stir until it gets clear again. And that's really all there is to it. A lot of people find this the most intimidating part, but it's really not that bad. You're just going to keep stirring till you get clear again. It takes a minute or two, but you can, let's see if you can see how cloudy that is. And the slower that you stir this, the less air bubbles you will generate. But I usually just tap mine down and let them come to the surface and they pop. And I let it sit for a minute before I start putting it on the cup. You have some time. It's not like it's going to harden in a minute. It isn't. Trust me, it's going to take hours for this to harden up. And you can see that it's getting really, really clear. Try to get that in the cup. Clearing up. See how clear it's getting now? You can even see through it. And then I just kind of tap mine and let the air bubbles come up and pop. And then I'll let it sit a minute and get most of those air bubbles out, and I'll come back and we'll put it on the cup. Okay guys, I just mixed up a little. I just mixed up very little in my Dixie cup for mine because I don't go very heavy with this first coat. But I just start with my brush, and I am just going to start applying it from the base up to the top, just a thin coat. That's all, and just keep it thinned out. This is my, I call my first coat, that I'm just getting the roughness of the glitter out, basically, with this, evening out the cup. And now I'm going to just turn it. I am not turning my rotisserie on yet. I want to coat my cup. I don't want to have to chase it. Some people do. They like to chase the cup. I'm not going to. I want to get a good thin coat of the epoxy over the entire cup. And I'm just turning it on my spindle here to loosen it up a little bit. There we go. And you can see the brightness of the glitter coming back from the Mod Podge. And you're not going to have brush strokes or anything like that. Just going to get the bottom of the cup here. I don't believe I got that on there that tight. I don't know. Okay, let me see if I can loosen my cup. I don't know how I got it on there that tight to start with, but I'll be right back with you guys. Okay, I got it loosened up. I think I just turned it the wrong way when I first rotated it. And I am not getting real close to that edge there because I didn't change my tape out, and I don't want my brush to pick up that glitter that is stuck. Am I turning that the wrong way again? I think that I am. How do I keep doing that? Okay guys, I just took it off the spindle just so I can make sure that I have the entire cup coated. And you can see that I still got plenty in this cup for this first initial coat. But I am just making sure that I get, and I know that my sand is a little bit lumpy in some places, and I'm going to fix that. It's going to be fine for me because I'm going to put on an extra thick coat of epoxy on my last coat, and it should be fine. I've had the one that I did flowers on, it was lumpy too. It will even out. Just takes a little extra. And now I am getting right around the edge of this cup, all the way around. Just don't want to have any areas that are not coated. And I'm going to cover the base really well. And I work over the Teflon sheet. These are my Teflon sheets that I use just for this, in case I have any drips that don't ruin anything. Now I am going to put this on the rotisserie, or cuptisserie, whatever you want to call them. And if I can do this without banging my cup. It gets kind of heavy. That's what I kept doing earlier. On this side, it comes towards me to tighten and away from me to loosen. Now I'm just going to turn on the cuptisserie or rotisserie, whatever you want to call it. And whatever's left in the cup, I'm just going to kind of let drip and drizzle on. It will even out. And I'm doing it in that area where I have the raised, to help it kind of smooth out a little bit more, because my sand is a little heavier than my glitter is. And it won't drip, or I mean, it's going to drip, but it'll drip off onto the Teflon sheet below. But it's just going to keep it smooth as it turns. That way you don't get any drips hanging on your cup. But as you see, all I did was to that first line on my cup. Yeah, it was the first line. I did it to this first line on my Dixie cup right here, or solo cup, and that was plenty for this first coat. So you should be fine. Make sure everything is coated good. If you see any areas as it's turning, go ahead and touch them up now to make sure everything is good and coated. Don't worry about brush marks. They're going to float out as it spins. And that's going to take several hours to dry. Again, I toss out. I do not save this stuff. I do not clean it. I toss it out because it's very hard to clean, in my opinion. So I just toss it out and start fresh with the next one. That's why I use the throwaway brushes. So let's let that dry, and I'll see you guys back here probably in, I don't know, it's going to depend on humidity, temperature, all of that stuff affects it. This could dry in potentially 6-8 hours. It may be up to 11-12 hours. As a matter of fact, this is how you can test it. Don't be tempted to touch your cup, but just in a place, drip a good amount. Get yourself a drip. I think I have one right here. Yeah, I do. Where it's got a good drip on it. Let me show you. Right down here, this spot right here. You see my finger pointing to it, is where it dripped off the cup when I was putting it on there to begin with. And that's what I'll touch. If it's dry, then I can touch my cup. Please, 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 please don't touch your cup to check for dryness, because you're going to leave a spot where you do it, and those are hard to fix, in my opinion. Check, do a drip on your, an intentional drip if you have to, on your Teflon sheet for testing and checking for the curing. You want to make sure it's cured and that it's hard. I think I have one here from my last cup, and it's hard to the touch. It's not sticky. If it's sticky, you're not ready to touch the cup whatsoever. So let that dry and I'll be back with you guys. I say dry, I mean cure. Hey guys, at this point you are going to be extremely tempted to touch that cup, because this is almost dry and hard, just a little tacky here and there, and it's very tempting. It looks dry, it looks beautiful, I know. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Even after this gets hard and it feels dry and it's not sticky, wait another hour. Give it just another hour. It's not that big of a deal, and you'll be happy with the results by waiting. So just, I know it's tempting and it's pretty and you really want to touch it, but don't touch it. And we'll come back after we've waited that extra hour and we'll go to the next step. Okay guys, at this point it is not sticky. I've got a piece of something from I was working with some vinyl. I had it stuck to my finger. It's not sticky now, so what I'm going to do at this point is remove my football, and I am going to remove this tape. And you can see I've got a little bit of overrun right here, and I am just going to trim that off by pulling it towards the inside of the cup. That's where it was stuck to the tape. It's more or less just glitter. Might be a little bit of Mod Podge. But I am going to take my sandpaper at this point. I am going to wet it. And I am going to sand all of this on the top, right here where it came to the inside. I'm going to get all of that off. And while it's wet, I am going to do a light sanding over the entire cup. Okay? Yes, it's going to scratch it and kind of dull it up a little bit. Don't worry about that. Because you're just basically knocking down any rough glitter at this point, any place where it might be sticking up where you can feel it being rough, and you're just going to knock that down. And that's all we're going to do. You don't need to sand a lot. You don't need to do a lot. Just a fine light sanding and get off the goo at the top with as much sanding as you need to there. And then we're going to come back, put on our, after you've sanded it, you'll need to rinse it really well and dry it so you have no dust on it. And then come back and we'll put our vinyl on it. I just want you guys to see basically what I'm doing. And this is just a piece of damp sandpaper. I went and got my 220 grit because I didn't have any more than 120 grit. But basically you're just kind of sanding off any little burrs that you may have at this point, any glitter that might be sticking up through that first coat of epoxy, and you're just smoothing it out. You're not doing anything but just kind of knocking it down just a little bit. You may still have a little shine. It may look a little dull. Don't worry about it. It will be okay. But just sand all the way around, and again, sand around the top. I had a little bit of Mod Podge and glitter leakage, but no epoxy in there. So that was really easy to knock off. And just kind of clean up the edge of your cup a little bit on the edge at the bottom. That's usually where most of the burrs are. And then rinse it really well and dry it off, and then come back. Okay guys, I have sanded mine. You can see that it's a little dulled up now. And I've reapplied new tape all the way around, and this is so that I don't get any epoxy down in there. And you may have some shiny places and things like that. If it was smooth and you didn't have any burrs of glitter, then that's fine. Just sand it in the places where you need it. Now is the time to clean it with alcohol and put your vinyl on, and then you can do your second coat of epoxy. So I'm going to go put my vinyl on, and then I will be back with you. Okay guys, I have gotten my vinyl applied to mine. I am using the foil, adhesive foil. I've got everything on just like I want it, and now I am just going to, just like we did previously when we put the epoxy on, now we're going to do the exact same thing, putting the epoxy on. You're going to mix it up, you're going to coat the entire cup, and you're going to let it cure. And this time, instead of a 24-hour cure, I let mine rotate until it's no longer dripping and my epoxy is hardened. And then I just turn off my rotisserie and I let it sit for another 72 hours. So epoxy it, let that cure, turn off your cup-tisserie, and let it sit for 72 hours, and then you can handle it, take the tape off. If you have any drips or anything at that point, then you'll need to sand those, get those smooth, and of course you'll need to put a thin coat of epoxy over that as well. So go ahead and get your vinyl on, get your epoxy going, and we'll meet back here for the finished product. Okay guys, at this point I've got my coat of epoxy on, and you notice I've got a good heavy coat. There's a little bit dripping down there, and that's fine. I have gotten down here with the light and I have checked to make sure that, especially around my vinyl, that I don't have any little divots where it's running around and there's just like a little pit where there's no none of the epoxy is in there, like in the little divots of the E's and stuff. I just drip some on those little places and I let gravity work from there. The excess will drip off on the other side. But you just want to check it, and if you have any really heavy areas, you can just drag your brush through it and let gravity even it out at that point. But you just want to get down there and check along the lines, make sure that it's all nice and evenly coated. There are no pits or really heavy runs. If you have them, just, you want it to be kind of smooth and even, but you want it to be heavy too. A little bit heavier than what we had before. And that's the purpose of the cup-tisserie, is to keep it rolling and keep this stuff smooth and even, and it will even itself out, and the excess will drip off at the bottom as it runs and cures. It should stay pretty much even. Make sure you got the bottom of your cup well and you don't have any big drips at the bottom there. If you do, go ahead and knock those off. And I saved just a tiny bit of my epoxy, and I will come in here in I don't know, an hour, maybe two, and I will check to make sure that there are no divots or any drips or any runs. If there are, I'm going to take care of them at that point. I've got a little bit of epoxy that I can drop in if I see any pits at that point. And then you'll be done. You can just let it sit and cure and come back it's going to be 24 hours at least here where I'm at. Again, temperature, time, humidity, all of that matters. So let yours start to cure, and we'll come back and finish off, take the tape off, and take a look at our cups. Hey guys, I'm back. My cup is completely dry. I did test my drips down here, and they're hard and not sticky at all whatsoever. And I touched my cup and it's perfectly dry. So I am at this point going to turn off my cup patisserie if I can get to it. Let's see. I always push it the wrong way. So we've got that turned off, and now I'm just going to take it off the spindle. Well, I really don't have to. I could just pull the foot off the football. And then I'm going to carefully remove my tape because I may have some drips of epoxy around the edge of the cup, and I do have a few. It's not bad. You don't want to really pull that. You'll want to sand any of that stuff that you have because you don't want it to peel your glitter from the cup. Let me grab my True Control knife and I'll be right back. This is the Cricut True Control knife blade. And that's a little sticky. I stuck my cup in it. I can wipe that off, it'll be okay. Any residue like this, I just go around the top with this knife because I can kind of keep it even and trim all of that off. And if there's any to the inside that won't come out, I'll just sand it to get it out. But you want to be very careful. You don't want to scratch your cup, and you don't want to dig into the sides of it. You just want to clean up the top if you had any drips. Sometimes I don't get any, and sometimes I get a few like this. Now is the time to do it because this cup, even though it's dry to handle, it won't be cured for a good, I don't know, 72 hours to a week. I mean, it's all right to touch. You'll be okay, but you don't want to be banging on it or denting it or anything of that nature because it's not cured that well. As you can see, if it was, I wouldn't be able to do this. And this may actually be a Mod Podge residue. It's coming off so easy. But just clean up the edge of your cup, around the edge, and then you're just going to let it cure for 72 hours. If you have any that gets right on the inside lip here, you can use sandpaper like that right there. I'm probably going to use this to get it out, but if I can't, I'll use sandpaper. Yeah, that's Mod Podge. I can tell because it's not clear. So I'm just going to get that out of there. I'm just going to work on it, get that out, get the Mod Podge off of there, and it'll be done. That's all there is to it, guys. Really, you are actually, at this point, finished with the cup. All you have to do is put the lid on it and sell it. But again, just take your True Control knife. You don't want to pull that residue. If you pull it, you're going to peel this because, like I said, it's not 100% cured yet, even though it's dry to touch, and you can handle it. It's going to take, I don't know, it depends again on your weather, your humidity, stuff like that. It could take about a week to actually harden up and cure completely. I wouldn't, if I was selling it for a customer, I wouldn't do anything but leave it on this football for a week, and then I would, after I cleaned it up, and then I would sell it at that point. But it would just sit here for a week and harden up completely before I did anything else with it. And that completes the tutorial, guys. You have a wonderful day. Give me a thumbs up on the video. Come over to the Facebook groups, Cricut Crafting with April, Cricut Maker Projects, or Cards and Cuddlebugs. We have a little something for everyone. So you have a wonderful day, and subscribe to the YouTube channel.